What still needs to be done is tying together our cold, hard external budget constraint with our touchy-feely internal indifference curves. So let's work on doing that. My CDs, my pizza. Is that better? That looks better. I can get 10 pizzas if I get no CDs. I could get 5 CDs if I get no pizzas. That's the cold hard reality I face, called the budget constraint. If I get a raise, this would move out. If the price of CDs falls, that side would move out. If the price of pizza rises, that side would move in. Of course, if the price of pizza fell, that side would move out. I'll come back to that. Then there are my indifference curves. Let's look at this indifference curve for just a second. Now, indifference curves, I'm not sure if I mentioned, they're like grooves on a record. Boom, 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 boom. And they just run out from here off into space. And I know I mentioned being farther from the origin is better than being closer to the origin. So, can I be on the indifference curve that I have drawn there? Not with the budget that I have, right? I can't reach it. It's not doable. All right, what about, let me use color to distinguish. What about this blue indifference curve here? Can I be there? Yeah, I could be at the blue one. In fact, I could be here or here. We can see there's points of intersection. I could also be at points in between if I didn't spend my entire budget on these things, but we always pretend we're spending our entire budget on these things because they're the only two things we can do is buy pizza or CDs. That's just part of our assumptions here. It's a bold assumption, but we're only looking at two goods, only all else held constant. So I could go to either of those places. I would like to be out there, but given my budget, I can't. Okay, well, what could make me get there, since I know I would like to be there? Suppose I got a raise. Suppose I got a 20% raise. I'm making $100, that would be $120. That would mean I could buy 12 CDs, and, 12 pizzas, or 6 CDs, and that might get me out there. Maybe it would take a 40% raise or a 30% raise. But a raise would shift my budget constraint out there, maybe I could get there. What if the price of CDs fell in half to $10? This would move out to 10. Maybe that pivot of the budget constraint could get me out there. Right? Maybe pizzas could go on sale or get cheaper. Then the budget constraint would pivot this way. And that could get me out there. But I can't get there as is. I can get to budget or indifference curves that are inside of my budget constraint. Let me get this thing that I can't get to off of here and start to focus a little bit more on that possibility that I can get to this budget constraint. This indifference curve. That's obtainable. But this indifference curve would be better for me. I can't quite get to that one either. So if these blue lines are packed together like grooves on a record, what is the very best I can do? Which indifference curve is the best I can get to? That is, this was utility maximization, and indifference curves are farther from the origin or greater utility. What is it that I can do to maximize my utility with this model? And there's only one way to really maximize my utility with these things that we have developed, and that is for me to be on the indifference curve that is just tangent to my budget constraint. That's the one. That's the most I can get of utility subject to the prices I face or the income that I'm making. And that point of tangency, that's only one point where these two lines touch. It's not any more than one point. I could slide out to that next groove on the record, right? So this right here, that tells me that if I could pin down my psychological trade-off where I'd be indifferent on those various indifference curves, this is the cold hard reality I face. So this tells me what's called the optimum consumption bundle of pizza and CDs for you. That is our consumer choice theory. That's where the consumer would choose to be given this consumer's preferences and the budget constraint that the consumer faces. Now, I didn't want to muck up my model too much by drawing it. I mentioned it before. What would happen if the price of CDs fell? If the price of CDs falls, let's say in half, I could get out to 10 CDs. I could, if I didn't buy any CDs, I could still only buy 10 pizzas. So this is a pivot point. That would be here. Connect these with what should be a straight line. Now my budget constraint is there. Now that old indifference curve is like some of those other ones. I wouldn't want to be there. I would want to move out to a higher indifference curve. I cannot move out to an indifference curve out here. Can't do it. Might want to, can't. The best I can do is move out to the indifference curve tangent to this new budget constraint. Now, this is the way I've sketched this. Something different has happened, something a little bit surprising. Maybe. Maybe not. Since I used a 1 for my first indifference curve, I'm going to change my notation. Make these 1s and use 2s. Sort of, I'm changing up my notation as I'm going. I won't make it all the same. Look what happened. I raised my consumption of CDs, but I lowered my consumption of pizza when I went up to the greater indifference curve. I'm indifferent along that curve, but this is now my optimal consumption bundle with less pizza. Why would I want less pizza? Well, I can get that much more CDs. But think back to the first video segment. I had those effects. Pizza got cheaper. I'm sorry, CDs got cheaper. CDs got cheaper, and so I rewarded CDs by buying more CDs. I substituted CDs for pizza. The substitution effect was dominant the way I sketched this because I reduced my consumption of pizza and increased my consumption of CDs. So my CD consumption going up and my pizza consumption, especially my pizza consumption going down, shows me that the substitution effect here was dominant. The other effect is in conflict about what to do with pizza, and it lost in this particular battle the way I drew it. The income effect lost. See, the income effect, that's the one, if you recall, that's where the cheaper CDs gives me more money to use to buy pizza, but I didn't buy more pizza, I bought less pizza. So I know that the substitution effect won. Now, I'm sure most people looking at this are going, how am I ever supposed to keep that straight? Well, I have a couple of tips, a couple of like little memory aids. When we go to a new budget constraint, in this case it was because of a price change, we're moving to the other indifference curve. Other starts with a vowel. Income, as in income effect, starts with a vowel. So the effects of just moving to the other curve are what the income effect shows us. If I had just moved out to this other curve, I would be moving up on pizza and up on CDs. But the substitution effect, the word substitution starts with an S. So does the word same. If I were to stay on the same indifference curve at my new indifferent or budget constraint slope, if I'd stayed on I1, I'd be moving this way. If I had to stay on the same curve, that's what this substitution effect shows me. What would happen on the same curve? I'm not going to, but it's what I would do on the same curve. See how my bright red line is flatter than that pink line? Along the same indifference curve I used to be on, the flatter points are this way. The flatter points are this way along the same indifference curve, this one. That means the substitution effect, that tells me that substitution effect is to substitute away from pizza and toward CDs. And that was what ended up happening at the end. But the income effect was at odds with that. It just lost. The income effect of moving out to the higher indifference curve was up on this and up on this. They agreed, income and substitution agreed to go up on CDs, but they disagreed about pizza and substitution won. So if you've seen the Disney Pixar film Inside Out, I kind of like to think of the psychological thing they have going on with income and substitution as characters in the movie. And the substitution effect is like anger in that movie. Real reactionary. Look what happened. The price of CDs went down. Substitute said, oh, I'm all over CDs. Forget you, pizza, I'm all over CDs. Real reactionary. Income's a little bit more thoughtful, a little more careful. But substitution just is whimsical and goes quick without thinking. That's what these effects actually kind of do, too. So let's see if we can come up with another example after this, after I clear this off and get that cat to be quiet.